Hi, this is Kelly Phillips from paperbeadrollers.com, and in today's tutorial, we're going to talk about how to choose the right size bead roller for your project. Let's get started. So these are all of the different sizes. Now the problem is you're getting ready to do a project. How exactly do you know which one of these to choose for your project? That's what we're going to talk about today. How would I go about choosing a roller to roll my beads with? The pin itself is what creates the core or inside of your bead. So for example, this is a bead that was rolled with a green. This bead was rolled with one of the larger ones. I think it was probably a purple. So you can see that makes a huge difference. How do I know which one to use? So the first thing I want to talk about is your stringing material. If you have a very thick stringing material, such as this braided wire, you of course are not going to be able to fit a bead that was created with your green bead roller onto this. It's just not going to happen. Even this satin cord right here is not going to fit on this green bead roller. It's close, but it's not going to fit. You're going to need, you might be able to get it into the red if you are careful with the end or you use possibly a needle, but really you're probably going to need a blue. So really your stringing material is a big one. Making sure that whatever stringing material you're going to use fits nicely. So if you take something with this blue roller, that's a blue end, and you want to put it on this material here, it's probably going to be a little tight. Which means that your bead is not going to move nicely on the string. Now, if that's what you want for that particular project, that's great, that's perfect. But if you want a bead to move nicely on this, you're probably going to want to go up one more to your yellow. So if you know what stringing material you're going to use, then that's easier to choose. So for example, this piece right here, there's a tutorial on this on my YouTube channel. This was done with a beading wire, I believe. Let's see if I can get this out. I made these at the very small. I think these were done with the red, possibly, or the green. They're very small, and it was done with beading wire. And so I was able to create very small, thin beads to go on this. Versus if I were going to do a snake chain bracelet with a Euro bead, I'm going to want to use at least the orange for this because they are not going to fit over these stop points if I don't use at least the orange. So those are the things you need to consider as your stringing material. And then of course you have some options like this. When you're going to be using head pins, you have to be careful because anything larger than a green is going to slide right off the end of a head pin. So if you're going to be using head pins to hang like these, you are either going to have to use some sort of a stopper, like this is a seed bead, or you could use, a silver ball or a gold ball or something on the end to make sure that the bead doesn't slide right off. And in that case, you could use a larger one, or you're going to need to make sure that you have head pins that are large enough with the green. Even with that though, you have to be careful because sometimes over time, depending on how hard your beads get, over time the beads can wear right on the edge and fall right off. So that's something to consider as well. So the first thing you need to consider when choosing the size of your bead roller for a project is your stringing material. Now I want to acknowledge you don't always know what stringing material you're going to use because sometimes you're just making beads for the heck of it just because you want to make beads. And so there are some other considerations we can have for that. Another thing you need to think about is what findings you'll be using. So first we're going to talk about bead cores a little bit. These are bead cores and this is what they look like when they're in a bead. So they go right into the side. You could also call them eyelets or grommets. Either way works. And you have bead cores that are different sizes. So for example, these really little tiny ones look like they might work with the green, but they don't. These actually work with the blue because you see the end has to fit in tight enough so that they don't fall out. The green is way too small. You see it goes right through. So this will never fit inside a green. So you need to make sure that you're getting the bead core that fits the right size bead roller. Now on all of the listings for these bead rollers, there is a chart that tells you, because these are often sold, sometimes they're sold in inches, sometimes they're sold in millimeters. So there's a conversion chart that tells you exactly what size of bead core goes with each size of roller. Just go to paperbeadrollers.com and look up each roller listing and it will show you. But this is the smallest I have that goes with the blue. And then we have these ones, 4 millimeter, which goes with the purple. Things rolled with the purple. And then we have the 5 millimeter. These are like the European style bead cores with the little letters and numbers on them, rather. And this goes with the orange or peach bead roller. Okay, so if you're going to plan on using some sort of grommet, then you need to know what size your grommet is or what size grommet to buy based on what size you're going to make your bead roller. Okay, so that's another consideration. Another thing you need to think about is what kind of spacers you're going to use for your project. If you only have teeny tiny little spacers, or you're planning on using teeny tiny little spacers, and you use beads that have a large bead hole, look what's going to happen. We're going to put this tiny little ball spacer on there. It's going to go right through. So if you're using seed beads, like 6/0 seed beads or something like that, it is going to go right through there. You would have to use one of the larger ball spacers to keep that from going through. Okay, so you need to keep that in consideration. Now, however, there are some differences. For example, I did a tutorial on this bead right here, and as you can see, here's one that's unfinished. I actually did roll these with a large one, but I rolled these larger because I knew that I was going to be putting the gold discs on the outside, or in some cases I inset them on the inside of the bead. So in that case, I used the larger bead roller so I didn't waste paper. If I had used the green on this, I would have used a lot of this really nice cotton rag paper. So this was good. So that's a consideration to think about. Also, as I mentioned before, you know, if you're going to be using the wire, you'll need a stopper. So you need to make sure that your stopper has a hole that's big enough to stop the bead. And then let's talk about bead caps. If you're going to be using a bead cap, such as, I don't know, like this guy right here, you're actually pretty good because this bead cap is mostly closed in around the edges. You can't really see inside there to see exactly what the hole's like. So you're perfectly fine to do any kind of hole really with a bead cap like this one right here. This is my octagon shaped bead cap that you can find in the store. However, let's look at this square bead cap, which I love putting square bead caps on round beads. I think they just look so cool. I mean, look at that shape. It just adds a different dimension that is just so cool. But in this case, you can see that this has openings on each side, and I can actually see the hole. I don't know, you probably can't see it on camera, but I can actually see what's going on under that bead cap. So in a case like this, I would not want a big gaping hole to my bead. I would want the hole to be fairly small, probably matching the cap itself. This one might be even a little too big. I might even go green or red with this one so that it looks nice and it matches the bead cap itself. Let's look at these little small filigree ones as well. This is the same way. This one isn't so bad, but I wouldn't want to try to put this to where it didn't have a lot of edge to glue down onto. This is okay. I wouldn't want to go any bigger than this. When you're using these tiny little filigree ones, you want to be careful and make sure that it covers the hole and the glue has enough space to grab. And we have a couple of other bead cap options here that are actually just newly released in the store. We have this little bead cap right here, and this is actually really good for tassels. I'm more likely to use this for a tassel than an actual bead cap. But if you were going to use this as a bead cap, this would be great for like a cone bead or something in there. It doesn't really matter what the hole looks like because it's so closed in and covered. You've got this enamel here, so you can't even see through it, and then the holes are so small. You probably don't need to worry too much about what size roller you use. Then we have this gorgeous baby. This is the largest bead cap I have. It is 19 millimeters. I don't even have a bead big enough to put this on right now to show you, but there is going to be an upcoming tutorial on it. This bead cap is awesome, and what I really like about it is the ring right around the outside here is the perfect size for the pink bead roller. So you could do a really big bead with the pink bead roller and that would cover it perfectly. This bead cap is really interesting because it doesn't even have a hole in the middle. It covers it right over, so you won't see like a huge gap. But you could do all kinds of cool stuff with this, like make a pendant out of it and do a loop around. We're going to do some creative things with this in a future tutorial. So I'm very excited. These are available at paperbeadrollers.com right now, limited amount, but I'm excited to do the tutorial on this one. So those are some things to think about with bead caps and how they might impact the size of the roller that you choose. Now, of course, as you can imagine, even if you roll the exact same size of paper strip, the exact same dimensions, on a different size bead roller, you're going to get a slightly different shape. That can have a big impact. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the shape. Now, I've done an entire tutorial on that and how the size of the pin affects the shape. But I'm going to show you a couple clips from that tutorial here just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. All right, so there's our biggest bead. Some of these, let me turn them upside down. Hold on, let me make sure again. I want to make sure I'm centered on the screen for you. Flip over. Okay, we'll do this. So I'm going to flip up the ones that'll flip up so you can see the diameters of the holes. Oh, I got it. This one I don't think is going to... Oh, I got it. Yay! So there is the diameter of the holes and how it's all the same strip. And it looks like a whole different bead just based on which diameter I picked. So different shape, different center hole. Let me kind of line these up a little better so you can see them from the side. And for some reason, I personally am not, I don't think, I don't think this is as attractive of a bead as this. But, you know, I was thinking, like I said, if this were on a slide, I think I would really like that shape as a slide. So I think it really depends on the use of them too. But for when I'm using this larger bead roller, of course, I'm using different strips. I'm probably not using a strip that is this size, which I think this is a 1/2 inch down to a point. You know, I'm generally using these 3 for my larger strips, and I'm using these 2 for my tiny strips, and then this can be used on a wide variety of strips. So you can see that for this particular one, there's just a little bit of a difference from the smallest roller to the largest roller and what that exact same strip looks like. And I'm going to link this tutorial in a card and down in the description so that you can go watch this tutorial as well if you're interested in seeing how that difference, if you're interested in seeing what a difference the size of the core makes to the exact same strip. Now you can always, when you're planing, you can always take a couple of strips, try it on a couple of different rollers before you start rolling all of your beads just to see which one you want. So those are the main considerations for how to choose a size of paper bead roller for your project. Of course, there are a million other different variables that can fall into it. As you know, when you're rolling paper, there are all kinds of things that make a difference between, you know, the thickness of the paper and how many strips you're going to roll and the type of paper you're using. There could be any kind of variable, but if you can consider these main 3 things, that should help you make a really good choice. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. I would love to see you over in the Paper Bead Fanatics Facebook group where you can share pictures of your projects with me. And I hope you'll like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can see many more tutorials on paper beading and paper beading projects. See you soon.